Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Felipe Onofrio, CTO and co-founder of Brickken, and it's a pleasure to have you all here today. Today, we're diving into something truly foundational, and it's the future of tokenization. We're talking about the ERC-7943, the missing link to the tokenized finance. We are Brickken. We're advocating for this chief for years. Now that tokenization has grown rapidly, we need a unified framework that every user and marketplace can use and stop reinventing the wheel. For today, we have amazing guest. So let's welcome to Patrick Hennes, Claus, Skaaning, and Bryn, Bennett. Patrick is a seasoned expert in asset management industry with over a decade on specialization in fintech and tokenization. He currently serves as head of digital asset servicing at DC Private Bank, where he focuses on bridging traditional finance with decentralized finance, driving the development of next generation finance. We have Claus Skaaning, is the founder and chief executive officer of DigiShares, a tokenization infrastructure for real-world assets, with a PhD in computer science and a background in artificial intelligence diagnostics. Claus pivoted into the blockchain space around 2017, driven by the conviction that digital infrastructure could democratize access to financial assets. And by last, Bryn Bennett is an accomplished business development and cybersecurity professional with experience in digital asset encryption and compliance. Based in Barcelona, he currently serves as partner for security and compliance at Hacken, a leading blockchain security audit firm supporting Web3, DeFi, and crypto ecosystems. So thank you to be here on this webinar. I don't know if any of you want to add something for this intro that I say.
I think it was fine, Felipe. Buenas tardes, Barcelona.
Buenas tardes there, Patrick.
Bona tarda.
Where are you now?
I am in Luxembourg, so it's quite cold here.
All right. Perfect. So let's start with some context. So what it matters now, this ERC-7943 standard. We can start with what is the specific problem in tokenization standard does it aim to solve, 7943?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, so just a bit of background on Hacken, we actually tokenized some of our equity on Bricken's platform a couple of years ago. So we have gone through this process as a real business that with real customers. What we've noticed over the last few years is that yes, there's been a huge rise in real world asset tokenization and these kind of projects popping up, but there's no unified universal framework for tokenizing them. And there's a lot that exist, but people who've implemented them have had issues with some of the features of them, or there's been a lot of fragmentation across the space over the last few years. It has made it harder to access these real world asset projects from places like DeFi. And for regulators and for us as auditors, we have kind of this opaque landscape at the moment of custom implementations instead of a consistent and testable baseline. So what we see the 7943 addressing is standardizing this kind of compliance hooks, but without dictating the underlying identities, registries, or policy engines, which is exactly where we see the biggest audit security and interoperability gaps today. So I'll hand the mic to another speaker to add a few more comments on what they see.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah, I think I could have said pretty much the same. I 100% agree. We as an industry need to be interoperable with each other, right? And we need a better standard for that than what was already out there. So it's really comes down to that. We can't have tokens minted and traded and borrowed on a number of different protocols, right? It needs to be on the same for all of us.
But when we're talking about the 7943, there's been another standards on the market. So what is the difference between these and the 3643, the ERC-20, or the ERC-1400?
Well, ERC-20 is a value transfer token, so it doesn't have this native concept of frozen balances or enforced transfers, eligibility for transfers, or allow and deny lists. What 7943 adds is those can transact features for KYC and KYB, but it doesn't implicitly mean that this KYC is baked into the token standard like it is, for example, with the 3643. It has compliance parameters, but they're expected to be implemented as third parties. So, for example, you would have a KYC module, but it would be separate from the actual token implementation. You have the ERC-1400, which is kind of heavier framework, has partition balances and doc references and this kind of stuff. Where 7943 differs from that is that it's a lot more minimalist and modular again. So it doesn't prescribe storage patterns or partitions or identity frameworks. Yeah, again, with the 3643, which is probably the other most common standard for real-world asset right now, this standard bundles an identity and permission stack into the token reference, into the there's on-chain identity registries in the 3643, whereas 7943 is implementation agnostic. So it states what compliance checks must exist, again, can transact, can transfer, but not how the identities or the whitelists are represented or governed. So this presents a much more easy implementation, we would say, and sort of a universal layer. So from the 7943, as we understand it, it should be easy to pass into other token reference standards for real-world assets with heavier compliance frameworks, and it should be easier to bridge in and out of real-world asset tokens into DeFi, into centralized exchanges and this kind of stuff over time.
So when you say that is everything in one side, is the difference with the 7943 is that the smart contract logic is in one layer and the identity is in other layer. So you can use any attestation method that you want. And that is very powerful and allows more flexibility for any issuer. Amazing. So now that we are looking for this standardization, so why this standardization is so crucial for the institutional adoption for tokenized assets? Claus or Patrick?
Yeah, Patrick. Maybe I can take this for me, as I think I'm the only old traditional banker here in this group, and it's not about my age, it's more about the concept of the traditional bankers. First of all, for the two first questions and the answers, I can sign for this, what my colleagues here have said on this panel. Now, from a traditional banking perspective about standardization, is that standardization is not a nice to have for us. Okay, it's part of an infrastructure, in fact. And probably it's very interesting that I tell you a little bit how traditional institutions are working when we are hiring providers, because I am a user. So you said that I am nearly 3 decades in the industry for traditional asset management, and I have been for a decade now already in blockchain, also with blockchain projects for tokenization of investment funds, tokenization of gold and things like that. I started with ERC-20, and I'm not a techie guy, so I had to learn a lot about what standard is doing. But what I want to say is about our provider management process. When I look into a solution, it's because I have a problem or I have a need. Okay, so for example, I want to tokenize an investment fund. So I will look into a solution, and I look into the solution in the whole infrastructure that the solution can bring to me. I never requested until now what is the standard of the code? So if I take it from a traditional technology point of view from Oracle, I have never requested how the code of the solution that I will buy is done. But now with tokenization, it becomes important to know on which standard are we working. Because there have been a few words have been said already about compliance, about interoperability. This is very important. With tokenization, we are not changing the finance world in totally, because we have still regulation that we have to comply with about AML, about payments. So compliance will remain the same. But I have to understand how my tokenization platform will comply with all the rules that I have. So what I want to say is that we look into how are risk managed, how is compliance managed by a standard, and okay, there are different standards around. We said in the beginning, ERC-20 is a standard tokenization standard, but there is no compliance in. So compliance has been brought in with the 3643. Which is a one-stop solution. Okay, so if I want to tokenize an investment fund in a whole regulated world, I go probably to this standard because I have a one-stop solution. Now you come with the 7943, which is more modular and which is important for traditional institutions who want to create a modular value chain, because probably I want to tokenize something with one infrastructure, but I want to have a digital custody layer in my architecture from another provider. And so I need that both are interoperable. Okay, that's why it's important that we see an evolution now in the standards, and that there is not only one standard. It's for me a very good thing, but I need regarding my with regards to my use case, use one or another, or bring two together. This is from a traditional point of view and from a provider management point of view, how I see solutions.
Yeah, I think that resonates with our perspective as well, where we have one standard solution. It allows us to build reusable test suites for cybersecurity, on-chain monitoring, threat modeling, this kind of stuff can all be built out. And often with blockchain protocols, we've seen the weakest links where they bridge in and out of different chains, for example, or in and out of DeFi into centralized exchanges. This is often the areas that hackers target. So just by the nature of having one universal standard, then we expect that we can build out this tooling for it, for the cross-platform compatibility of this ecosystem.
And I guess from the security side too, it's easier like to know how to expect from this standard than trying to figure out like what everyone invents in their side. Like, this is my experiment and this is how I think gonna be a tokenization smart contract.
I guess there's two sides. So that there's the business side. We'd probably be making more money if everyone was doing custom implementations, but then for the adoption side, it's not so good.
Well, this supports more to be more secure, as Joe has been out with this for many times. So amazing. Something else you want to add for this? Why this is going to be a prerequisite? Well, a requisite for institutionals and adoptions. Well, now that we are talking about these institutionals, let's take a little bit about what we have to expect from regulators and custodians to support this implementation, what we can expect, or what role they have to assume.
I can say a few words. I would expect regulators to get behind standards that are real standards, right? And that means protocols that are supported by many players in the industry and are not locked into a single provider. That's, as we view it, one of the main differentiators with the other standards that are being proposed. That here we are actually a large community of different providers, even competitors, competing companies that are getting behind a single protocol, right? That should be a criteria and a differentiator for a real standard that can happen. because we are all motivated to be interoperable and to create a coherent ecosystem. So hopefully the regulators will value that and will prioritize that over other factors.
Yes, because at the end we are building a standard on the side of the development. We're in the development side, but well, the regulator has to enforce it or check it out and say, okay, this is something that we have been looking for to make more liquid this market or unsecure.
I want to add something here, because I think we have to distinguish two different roles: the role of the regulator and the role of, I would say, the institutional guys that I represent. Right. The first role, so the regulator, he will set the legal parameters of how the industry has to function. Okay? What they will not do, they will not impose us a certain standard. Okay, but they will check, and I have to provide this when I make my, I would say, my legal filing, when I ask for probably licensing to the regulator. They will ask me if the infrastructure complies with this, and this. But they will never ask me, does your infrastructure has the ERC-7943 standard? Because very often regulators are working technology agnostic. But what they want is that the technology complies with the legal parameters that they have set. So this is one thing. And then you have on the other side, you have the traditional guys, the traditional institutions that will set the operational layer. And this operational layer, I have to see if it fits into the legal parameters. Okay, when your standard, the 7943, fits to my operational requirements and into my operational layers, because I will not only have probably I will not only have the blockchain technology in my architecture, I will also have off-chain architecture, and all this have to fit together. So I will have some ramps between the off-chain and the on-chain stuff. And if this operational layer complies to the legal parameters with the standard that you provide, I can implement it. That is how it works. So in general, we will not only adopt some innovation or some hype technology, but we will adopt a full infrastructure.
Totally clear, Patrick. I want to correct when I say enforcement. I want to say support the standard, because I agree with you that it needs not be to be enforced one standard over others. And the operational logic is super clear. Like if it works and complies with all the parameters for the asset to be tokenized, it's okay. So let's make it easier doing this standard for these players to build a tokenized asset and follow the compliance.
Maybe I can add something, because I was invited on different conferences now, on different panels, and the discussion between institutional guys and the fintech world, so TradFi and DeFi, is very strong for the moment. So there is a real community that, because we always talked about the DeFi community and the TradFi guys, and now we are becoming one community. And it's very important to communicate together. And I was recently at the Luxembourg Blockchain Week, where there were also some panels with the regulator. And this is very, very interesting. The regulator is coming to a lot of conferences now, and they invite all projects or all players from both industries to discuss with them and to present them solutions. And this is amazing, because I can tell you 10 years ago or 8 years ago, when I made my first conferences and I was talking about tokenization of investment funds, they took me for a crazy guy. Okay, and the regulators were there. Ooh, what is this? Now they invite the whole industry to talk with them. So you can talk about standards with them. They will probably stay neutral about what I said before, so technology agnostic. but they are interested to see what for solutions there are in the world outside of their regulatory building. And that's very important. And it's an amazing time that we have currently. And I saw this change on a very specific date last year. It was the 30th of December 24, when MiCA came really into force. Everything has changed, because then tokenization was knocking at the boardroom doors. Okay, and this is what makes our work so interesting now.
Yeah, I think the key is that the compliance frameworks for launching compliant ruled asset companies around the world change. So the key thing with the ERC-7943 is that it doesn't hard code compliance rules. It hard codes compliance touch points, but not rules. So you can adapt to these changing frameworks and these customized approaches to be compliant wherever you are building in the world. Like even this week, I've been on the phone with some people launching land tokenization projects in Asia at the same time as some other guys launching hotel tokenization projects in Latin America. Those countries have completely different regulators and completely different perspectives on how crypto businesses should operate. So the 7943 presents us with a unique opportunity to build the project within the compliance framework of where we're actually tokenizing our assets as well.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very important, what you said about flexibility in compliance. I remember 8 years ago, I was moderating a workshop about mutualization of AML KYC data to put them on blockchain. Okay, it was part of an initiative here in Luxembourg. And I remember I had two compliance officers from two different banks. And we were discussing about AML KYC data points for their investors. And with in the same regulation, we were in Luxembourg, I had two different opinions on data points to put into a smart contract. Okay, so one bank said, I am happy when my client provides me his profession. And they took the example of a university professor. And the second compliance officer said to me, it's okay for us with the profession, but if it's a university professor, I want to know from which university, because this could change my risk analysis of this investor. Okay, so if you are a professor from Harvard, it's probably not the same than from I know which town in Europe. Okay, so this is very important when you make compliance smart contracts for AML KYC stuff, that it can be flexible. There is a standard regulation framework under AML laws, okay, AML 5, 6, but the risk appetite of each institution can be different, and it must be programmable in this case.
So well, the compliance and the KYC is something is a huge pain in all that is on-chain verifications, and almost everyone is doing it off-chain and trying to figure out a common ground around this. And I think it's one of the points that is still working on to be addressed. And hopefully with this abstraction of the identity layer from the logic, will be easier for depending on the use case with the 7943. Totally. Something that rises a lot is about the interoperability for the 7943. So how does the ERC-7943 enable interoperability for these regulated tokens?
Yeah, I guess we can jump in again. So as we understand it, the standard is L2 L1 EVM chain agnostic. So it's meant as a unified interface that all compliant real-world asset projects can use or choose to use wherever they live. If folks are listening and interested in joining the working group that's helping in the design phase of this EIP, we're expected to latest timeline was selected to launch as an ERC at the end of this year. but there's still some time to review the IP design and get involved with this. The goal is to make it as easy to implement as possible for those that are already building real-world asset projects. So wrapping ERC-20, 721s, 1155s, ERC-3643, whatever you've built within the past, it shouldn't be too difficult to build with the ERC-743. And also integrate it into your tooling as well. So one of the jobs that we are doing at Hacken is to do the final design audit and look at the security of the token, but then also integrate it into our real-time monitoring and threat detection tools and compliance monitoring tools. We have AML detection software that plugs into the security suite that we've built. So yeah, ERC-7943 will ship with all of the tools that you need to be secure and compliant on chain.
So, Bryn, when you are talking about this, is that existing projects using older tokens doesn't need to overhaul their existing infrastructure to start integrating 7943?
As far as I understand, it's designed to be as easy to implement as possible. There will be some probably some KYC solution will need to be found, since it doesn't have that native into the token standard. But yeah.
Great. And from the compliance logic, what is the most important thing that this token architecture helps to follow these rules?
I can try. I'm not very technical, but I asked my team what are the key elements. So we can do pretty much the same, I understand, as we could with other existing standards, right? So we can freeze tokens, we can forcefully transfer, we can put in transfer restrictions, and so forth, right? So we should have pretty much everything we need. We speak to, I don't know, 20 issuers every week or something like that. And generally, these are the requirements that we need to support as a platform provider. So we're happy.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that we already talked about all these on-chain identities and the whitelisting. So this is a key feature at the end for this type of securities tokens. Be able to know who you are, right, Patrick, and be able to whitelist the users. Yeah, it's a key factor for this type of asset.
That's the most important. It's the starting point. In fact, it's not only important in tokenization. It's in general in the asset management and the asset servicing industry on the value chain. It's the starting point. It's the onboarding of the investor. Okay, if it's digital or non-digital, it's the most important point. So this is one thing. And now, if we with the tokenization, we put a very specific technology layer on our services. So we issue something on a distributed ledger technology. Okay, so we issue the security itself. We issue a digital identity. Okay, and we issue as well smart contracts that do the operations. So they do in normal words, I would say subscription redemption. In your words, I would say minting and burning. Okay. So we have different type of operations, and there are different smart contracts managing this. So they need to communicate with each other. So when I onboard a client, an investor digitally, and he receives a digital identity, okay, he must fulfill all the rules about AML KYC, then he receives a digital identity. But when I go to the smart contracts of the issuer who issued the token for an investment fund, for example, and the smart contract of the operations, those smart contracts must know that this identity, this key that enters into my infrastructure is whitelisted, so that I'm allowed to buy a certain fund. Okay, so this is one thing about the whitelisting. Then we have also with identities, it could be that at one moment the characteristic of an identity change. So how to communicate this to the infrastructure? And there is the issuer, or in my words, the transfer agent also, he has a role to take, oh, attention, here is something, I have a warning for an identity which was before whitelisted, which becomes blacklisted. So I need to freeze probably positions. I need to revoke rights and things like that. So it's all about governance. And all the different standards need to comply with these rules. So it's about standard operations. I can do it off-chain or on-chain. It doesn't change for me, for my operations. Now with smart contracts that are doing my operations automatically, I need, as an operator, I need to take over the control at one moment in time if something changes in the nature of the investor, or also in the nature of the investment fund. Or I can have a global event in the world, has already happened in the past, that I need to stop every operation for a few days, for example. That could be possible. So I need to take control over it. In Luxembourg, we have a special law for this, which is the blockchain law number 4, which introduced a specific role to one of the operators of such an infrastructure, which is the control agent, who has all the rights on tokenization infrastructure, for example. Oh, he has not only rights, he has also obligations. Huh?
Yes, this is something that a lot of people misunderstand when we talk about the tokenization and the blockchain or cryptographic assets, about, KYCs and etc., and the privacy that I think they misunderstand, that they compare apples to pears or something else, because it's another completely financial instrument that need to follow these rules if we want to tokenize real world assets, right? At the end are real and follow some rules, and as you say, Patrick, you need to know who are the owner and follow the rules behind this asset. We are not changing the nature of the asset by tokenizing it. So we need to follow these compliance.
Totally. There is a big challenge, with blockchain, because on blockchain we have a full transparency normally about everything, but on the other side, investors are why are they going to blockchain? Because probably also they can stay anonymous. Okay, so blockchain is the perfect oxymoron, which is transparency and anonymity. So, but I think that there are legal parameters who manage this perfectly for the moment. Probably there will be other changes in the laws. Regulators are coming very often out with new regulation. But if, for example, an infrastructure has a certain transparency, but is in line with GDPR, then everything is okay.
Totally. Yeah. Well, now that we understand that the 7943 is interoperable and follow these compliance rules, let's see how this standard or proposal at this moment has been used. I don't know if this is any live implementation or pilots demonstrating the ERC-7943 in action.
We haven't launched one yet, but are looking to start implementing in Q1 next year. And we will roll it out to all our clients and also use it on our own exchange.
Yes, the same right now with Brickken. We are doing all these testing with these standards at the moment, as we are looking for the final review and all the feedback from all the association behind, and we doing our factories to do these tokenizations, follow the standard to follow up. I know, Bryn, you was talking about some experiments that you have been doing with 7943.
Yeah, our senior smart contract auditors have been digging deep into the EIP implementation. So we expect to be usually with the last team that folks speak to before they launch to mainnet. So we're expecting to run some robust audits, but also our goal for the next year is to tokenize 100% of our equity and become one of the first fully tokenized big crypto companies out there. Just being a part of the working group right now has been a fantastic experience. There's a lot of different companies involved. I think last time I counted, there was over 30 real-world asset companies, marketplaces, tokenization companies involved in this working group. So do recommend if anyone wants to join and to contribute now in the last phase of the design, that now is the time to become a part of this. You can search ERC-7943 to check out the Ethereum improvements proposal. And also there's a lot of discussion on the technical level on ETH Magicians forum about this. And there's also a Telegram group. I believe we can share the link in the video description for anyone that wants to join and become a part of the more business side discussion of this project.
Yeah, it's totally brilliant. I can say this thread on Ethereum Magicians is a really nice exchange of knowledge on the tokenization and how the collaboration is doing a really good job on this EIP. So let's everyone to go there and see if they need something to be added or to review it, because the idea is to be a universal RWA token with that. So for the traditional finance institution, Patrick, you see somebody experimenting with this standard?
No, currently I haven't seen any real life experimentation, but you know, from my side, I did a lot of on ERC-7943, guys, which is already, I know the standard since the beginning. You know this, I did a lot of proof of concepts on this, very fantastic things. But what I would suggest to this group is, you bring modularity in the industry. That is, you know that traditional finance is a very monolithic block. Okay, all architecture infrastructure in traditional finance institutions, monolithic, core system and legacy system driven. Okay, but we are all, when I say all, my peers and myself, we are all looking very deeply now to the value chain and how we can reshape it and revamp it. And we are looking more into modularity. So we take this block that we have and we will not replace it. That's for sure. I'm not saying now that we take all our systems and we throw them away. This will never work. And this is also what I observed, that a few years ago, DeFi fintechs, they were there to disrupt. They wanted to disrupt the whole financial industry. This is no longer the case. I see that DeFi and TradFi are going into a real convergence and are creating layers, different layers into financial institutions. And this is amazing. So, I hope to see in the near future that traditional finance institution will do some proof of concepts with the new standard, with the ERC-7943. What I would also wish is, and we are just, we have a month to go, or no, less than a month to go to Christmas. So a Christmas wish would be also to see that the two different main standards now, the 3643 and 7943, will converge in a kind of way to see that we see some proof of concepts going into this direction to create modularity between different systems that work on one and systems that work on the other. I think that would be very important to see. I think that those standards have been developed by really brilliant minds, and I always invite brilliant minds to communicate together, because this will really shape the future.
Totally. So we have to spot the light on these institutions that they're seeking of these modularities that is the 7943 provides or can provide to them. So yeah, what you say about the monolithic and legacy system for the financial system is completely true, but let's wait for other type of assets that they need to be more flexible, and
yes,
in that sense, the 7943 go to scene.
Felipe, that's what I said already different times there. I wrote an article also about the two standards. I think we talked about this when I was in Barcelona, and I compared the two standards a little bit with containers, with standards of containers that before the 60s, in fact, there was no standard for containers. Okay, so it was very difficult sometimes for some shipping boats when they arrived in a harbor to get rid of all the containers. Then, end of the 60s, there has built a standard for containers. So with everything, the size, the locks, to take them out in each harbor, so you can go with your container to each harbor in the world, and the container can be taken out. This was a standard. So this is a full a one-stop shop solution, which is the ERC-7943. And then you have now the ERC-7943, which I compared to the same container, but for example, you can put on this container another lock, okay, but this container can still go into each harbor of the world. Okay, and or another example that I have given there was, or that I discussed with one of you guys, was the story of a pizza. Okay, you have a need. You are hungry and you want to eat, so you can go into a restaurant and you receive a pizza which is completely done. You get it on your table. This is the ERC-7943. But you can also go into a restaurant and you say, I want a pizza, and you put this on, this on, this on, and it's not on the menu. And at the end, you eat your pizza and you're no longer hungry. Okay, so you have the same need, but you receive it from two different, it's fulfilled by two different, from two different sides.
Very, very nice explanation.
I have a comment to that, right? Because in principle, the way it is now, if you want a pizza according to the ERC-7943 standard, there's only a single vendor that can produce it. Whereas if you want it according to the 7943 standard, pretty soon there'll be 10, 20, 30 vendors who can produce it. That's also a key difference.
Yeah, a very big difference. Yeah. And even you can build that pizza with the 7943, right? Exactly the same features. All right. So this is how the traditional finance is looking for these standards. What is the next question could be how this standard can impact on the DeFi and the liquidity for a secondary market for RWAs?
I can add a little bit. So we are building an exchange in the US. Real estate.exchange has been running for a few months. We were actually looking into having to support 5, 6, 7, 8 different protocols right longer term to make sure that we could provide sufficient listing capabilities for other vendors out there. Now, hopefully we can settle on a single protocol, right, to cover all tokens produced by any issue out there. So that's a huge advantage, I would say, and it just makes it much easier for any provider of a secondary trading venue, right, to cover a large percentage of the issues out there. So, yeah.
So at the end, what the DeFi needs is this: they know how to manage these smart contracts and be able to interact with them and their smart contracts, right, Bryn? If this helps a lot.
Yeah, I think the key thing for us is, like, obviously with real assets there comes a much higher compliance burden. We have to have AML compliance, as Patrick was saying earlier. Have to have OFAC compliance and all this kind of stuff. So where we're particularly interested, we have, as I mentioned before, we have real-time threat monitoring and detection and interception across all of the EVM ecosystem. Where we're particularly interested is as we integrate 7943 into those stacks, is just expanding the compliance feature sets to match all of these different frameworks all around the world. And there is new ones coming out every week, it seems, at the moment. New announcements by parliaments all over the world that they're discussing VASP regulation and CASP regulation. So yeah, that'll be the particularly interesting part for us. Obviously, as we complete the final security check on the 7943, we'll probably be working with some of the first projects and pilots that are implementing it as well, I expect. And then particularly for us, we already have a token that's like a DeFi token, shall we say. The utility of it is that you can stake it in bug bounty pools right now. But how we integrate our tokenized equity into that stack as well will be particularly interesting for our team over the next year. So we want to tokenize all of the equity in our company, but how we mix that in with our existing products and portfolio is going to be the interesting part next year for development.
Yeah, because you need to do a KYC Uniswap, something similar for that purpose.
Yeah, potentially. If you wanted to go in and out of the real world assets or some kind of identity that you can take with you, maybe these various proof of humanity protocols that are out there.
Totally.
I would add that there has been some problems with centralized KYC provision in the past. Like where are we sending all that data? Is it held in it under GDPR conditions? These have been legitimate problems that have happened in the crypto industry in the past. In fact, most of the major exploits at the moment are phishing attacks and access control, and sometimes those are derived from data leaks of services like KYC providers information.
Yeah, totally. I heard a few days ago about a screening for like hackers from the North Korea, and if the email have not been leaked, they are new emails, and probably it must be a weird account, like everyone's emails account has been leaked in one way or another in a long time in the internet.
Actually, as an aside to what we're talking about now, the main area that we're focusing on with our clients is team and operational security right now. So things like having a robust recruitment policy or having a good device management policy within the organization, super important right now. As you say, there was a major layer 1 blockchain SDK that was found to have one of their core modules was built by North Korean hackers. Like that came out last week. And at least 50 chains had implemented it already.
Yeah. Well, this is a real threat in the space, and more of it. Many companies are full remote, But yeah, this how do you know that your data is secure with these providers? It's a type of trust there, but it's needed so far.
Yeah, I think in the European framework now under Mika and Dora, particularly on the Dora side, like businesses are required to analyze their third-party service providers now and look at their entire system. We were quite used to in blockchain to having one smart contract audited done or penetration test done and then going to mainnet. But if you're building in Europe now, you have to look at the entire system, who your providers are, whether it's KYC or hosting services, software development. This all has to be brought into your risk management.
Totally. And this is from the side of the DeFi, but let's say talk about the TradFi. This standard will help for secondary market liquidity for RWA in traditional finance. when the rails for these assets?
But currently, there is. I'm coming from the investment fund industry, very traditional, and there is no real secondary market that we are managing. So this is something we are not looking deeply into it for the moment, but for sure this is something that will come. That's for sure. And there are use cases, but not in the UCITS world and not in a regulated private equity world for the moment. But I'm sure that there will be an evolution on products and also on infrastructure and mindset that will lead to a secondary market for sure. There are projects which are not under a regulated, not real under the regulation of the finance authorities. Here in Luxembourg, I have seen, for example, in real estate tokenization, that there are secondary markets, of course. And yeah, I think there is some importance in the next 2 years around this, because the possibility is there.
Totally.
In this case, whitelisting becomes, again, a very important criteria, that a secondary market of 2 different investors that are on one platform, they must be whitelisted, so that they must be known, there must be trust between the 2 parties on your infrastructure, but you as the infrastructure provider, or I as the institution that takes on this infrastructure, I must be sure that this whitelisting works very well, because it is a question of trust.
Okay, well, looking ahead, what remains to be solved for the ERC-7943 to reach the mass adoption?
Keep it flexible. Keep it flexible, interoperable. There is a very specific use case that is not to underestimate, and it's coming from asset managers. So asset managers are always, they are technology agnostic as well. They want that their operations are done, and they are not looking deeply into the technology infrastructure. They start now because it's very interesting to see what happens. But asset managers can change their providers with regards to custody and depository banking services. So it could be that I need to onboard an asset manager that is with one depository bank on a specific tokenization infrastructure, okay? And I need to move all the keys to my digital layer, okay? So my digital layer must be able to take them on, and that operations go smoothly, can smoothly continue, okay? If the 2 infrastructures are working on different standards, okay, those 2 standards must be interoperable. This is very important. So that's why I say the standards must be flexible. So you have to work on that, guys. This is very important. And I tell you this because I did during many, many years a lot of migration from asset manager from one depository bank to another bank on old technology. And say Oracle is then an old technology for me. I migrated around about 300 billions. So I can tell you this can be a nightmare between different systems. And I really hope that tokenization and digital layers and digital custody will solve this problem in the future more smoothly.
I would like to add that it would be great to also have, as part of the standard, some idea for how to do decentralized ID or KYC, right? I think we need that as one of the next elements. And then I would say for the overall standard, I hope that it will remain independent from any specific single vendor, right? I think that's the key requirement also for it to become a real standard.
So at the end is the open source collaboration that can accelerate this infrastructure.
Yeah.
Not a single vendor.
I think from our side, for developers, it's a way to stop reinventing the wheel every time we come to this problem of compliance logic. For the institutions, it's a path to like scalable vendor agnostic tokenization. For regulators, it's a clear window into how the controls are enforced on chain. And for the ecosystem, it's a foundation for us all to build deeper markets for these real world assets and drive the mass adoption.
So, but do you think that is need to add a new EIP that could complement the ERC-7943 related to identity?
I think that there's probably a lot of people talking about that as an aside. I definitely believe in decentralized proof of humanity stack. We have actually some fantastic builders at Humanity Protocol trying to solve this problem in Barcelona. So definitely a conversation for another day.
Totally. And well, to close in this webinar, what advice you can give to institutional developers who are preparing to implement this standard for 2026?
I would say the best course of action to join the working group to chat to the other companies that are integrating this standard, to chat to us to see how you do that in a secure fashion, and just become part of the design process now.
I would say, well, this is a message. It's your call, your developer guys. Design everything what you design from now for optionality and not for ideology. Okay, don't run behind ideology that will not be adopted by institutions, and please tokenize in a way that it still works in 10 years from now.
Probably. Claus?
As the other guys have said it extremely well. I really don't have anything to add. Yeah, let's work on putting something together that can remain independent and work in the future, right?
Yeah.
Where we can plug other stuff into. All of us will support it, and we can create hopefully a coherent ecosystem.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all to be on this webinar, and thank you to all the listeners who've been here. And let's continue with this conversation on how to build this standard with many companies in the sector and build something truly universal for this industry. So thank you, all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Hasta luego.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.